Cool. We're gonna go ahead and get started. We'll let more folks join as the call is going on. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their evening to join us for our voice, our power, our vote. Um, as people know, we are in a tense time right now when it comes to the upcoming elections, and there's a lot at stake. And on this call today, we're going to be diving into what's at stake and hear a little bit about why you all vote, why you show up to the polls, and what's at stake in your personal lives. I'm going to pass it to Martin, our board president, and he's going to open it up for us.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I want to thank you all for attending, and I want to thank our panelists, Claudia and Chantel, for taking time out of their busy schedules to participate in this very important event. WESCO, the Westside Community Organization, is a nonprofit, 501c3, so this is a nonpartisan event. We don't endorse candidates, we don't endorse parties, but we do endorse voting. And voting is a very important thing. People try to take away our votes, and if it wasn't so important, people wouldn't be trying to take away our votes. So, but it's not a thing of coming about every 4 years, we have an election and then we just sit for 4 years. We need to be engaged in between those 4 years. WESCO's a community organization, and we have organizers doing work in between that, and so that's something we're used to, and I'm used to doing that. But other folks, whatever happens November the 3rd, we're going to have to participate in some way, shape, or form. Once we elect somebody and we have elected officials here, they know that the people need to be involved in between. Otherwise, things don't get happen. If you don't put pressure on your elected officials, if you don't get involved, they say call your congressman or you can't fight City Hall, and we have fought City Hall on a couple of occasions and we've won. And I'm sure folks can attest to that in recent things that are going on in the local city council and the school board in the last few months, which some of the folks here on this panel have been involved in. So that's what we're trying to do in this particular event. The importance of the election, it is, but also what's just as important, maybe even more so, is what happens in between. How we participate, and that's what we're trying to get folks involved in here on the west side and in other areas of the city, the metro, the state, the country, etc. And with that, I'm turning it back over to, I believe, Leah, who will outline some technical stuff. Am I correct in that?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Welcome again.
Wait, one second, Leah. One second. No, you're good. Just before we dive into tech, I just want to walk you through the agenda just so we have a clear idea.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. I'm terribly sorry. Yes.
You're good, Martin. I got you.
No. That's fine.
So we're just going to do, we're going to have group questions. So there will be an opportunity for us to hear from everyone on the call, just around like why you vote, why you show up to the polls, what's at stake for you in this election. Then we'll dive into the panel where we have our lovely speakers, Claudia and Chantel. And then there'll be a small break. And then we'll have a small group breakout for you all to be able to converse with each other and dive a little deeper into what's at stake and how we're going to be having conversations with our neighbors and family and whatnot. And then we'll do a little debrief, and there'll be a call to action, and we'll close. And I want to encourage folks to stay on the call for the whole time. The call to action at the end is going to be really cool. We'll actually be giving out signs because we have these really cool our voice, our power, our vote signs that we're giving out on the west side. So stick around, get your sign. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Leah to talk about tech, because we don't want to assume that people know how to use Zoom or this new tool that we're going to be using called Menti. So, yeah.
So I'm just going to go briefly over some of the features of Zoom that we'll be using tonight, and then also just a brief thing about Menti. So just a moment. And I have my helper here, so my apologies if I get mildly distracted. Okay, so this is a screenshot of Zoom. And on here we can see some of the features. Down here, we've got the our mute button. So that's good to use if you don't want people to hear noises in your home. So we'll keep that on unless you're actively talking. And then we have our stop video, so you can have a blank screen. Over here, if you hover over yourself, you'll see there's 3 dots, and on there you can rename yourself if you want to rename yourself, and mute yourself from there as well. There's also the chat feature, so keep an eye on that. We'll be posting some links during the meeting. And there's also the reactions. So if you click on there, you'll see, you know, you can do a little thumbs up or a clap. And so this view here is the gallery view. So here we can see a lot of people going. And if we click over here, this is the other view, which is our speaker view. So you can switch between those, the toggles up at the top. And you might want to have yours on speaker view during the panel so that you can see the speaker. If you're on mobile, it looks more like this, and all the same features are there, but you might have to look in this more button here to find them. And then, so Mentees are this new tool. It's this interactive thing where we can ask questions, you can respond, and then we can all see kind of where the responses lie. It is anonymous. So what will happen is I'll pull up a website and there'll be a code at the top, and you'll go to menti.com and enter the code here. And then you can participate in the questions that way. And then if you're on mobile, you can just exit the Zoom app and then open up this website on your browser, and then you can come back to the Zoom app after you are done with that. And if anybody has any questions, you can chat to me. I'll be the Leah Shepard, Wesco Tech named person. Or you can email me at leahs@wesco.org. Okay, so now I'm going to pass on to Monica Morocco.
Thanks, Leah. Hey, everybody. Nice to see you. We're going to open up with a land acknowledgement. We usually do these in our Wesco meetings. So here we go. We are on Dakota homeland. Acknowledging this grounds us in the history of this land that we call home and points us towards recognizing that what we do together here as a community is tied to that history. Both our actions and our inactions shape the land and the lives of the people who live here now and those who will be here after us. We all have a right to live, to have a home, to be treated with dignity and respect, yet we know that this country has still not fulfilled this promise. Those indigenous to this land developed a way of governing out of a traditional knowledge and practices with collective power and resilience. And despite persecution and denial of both their sovereign and human rights, Native people have been relentless in their activism for all life, the right to tell stories in their own words and make the decisions that will shape their lives and their communities. As we trace the history of this land, and specifically zoom into our west side that many of us call our home, we see incredible ways that community has come together to build and use power. From the Dakota people and the bountiful resources that they nourished on this land, to the refugees and immigrants who lived on the flats and created many of the structures and the families that have been here for generations, despite the displacement, to the grassroots organizing power of West Side residents who in the 70s successfully fought to save the only public school in the neighborhood, and to where we now stand as a community that continues the fight for justice, equity, resources, and the right to make choices for ourselves that impact our daily lives. So we are quickly approaching Election Day. As Martine mentioned, the work doesn't stop at Election Day, or we just, sit and wait and see what happens. We are here tonight to bring together our ideas, our experiences, because we know that that has power. We know that the voices of many who live here have been silenced and disregarded for too long, while other voices have received both a megaphone and a firm seat at those decision-making tables. So voting is a right in this land, but voter suppression tactics against Black, Indigenous people of color have also held a steady grip. So tonight, we're here to disrupt these cycles of chronic underrepresentation and exclusion. Our lived experiences reflect the systems created to shape our lives, and we all can see very clearly the difference between when policies and decisions are made on behalf of us or disregard us, instead of those that are made by, for, and with us. So tonight we're gathering to remember our history, know and exercise our rights, decolonize those resources, and advance the issues that deeply matter to us and affect our everyday lives. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to kick it back to Michael so he can run us through our community agreements.
Which I'm actually looking for, and I cannot find currently. So let me figure that out. I have them pulled up. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Well, I actually cannot find the community
I've got
agreements.
it, Michael.
You
I'll
got
share my
them?
screen. Yeah.
Sweet. There we go. Coming in clutch, Leah. Teamwork, teamwork. All right, so I'm just gonna read through these community agreements really quickly because I could not find them in my Google Docs, but here they are. So just to make sure that we promote civil and loving discussion on this webinar, we don't want to be talking over each other or disrespecting each other. We want this to be respectful, loving conversation. We agree to operate from a place of highest intent. We don't want to assume that someone's being malicious, try to meet people where they're at, to listen for understanding, to be honest and open, to ask questions, to be aware of how much space we're taking up or we don't take up. So kind of step up, step back. If you're talking a lot, chill out. If you want to say something, this is the space where you can speak. So please do. To honor different lived experiences, to take care of yourself. Please ask for support. So if you got to go to the bathroom, if you got to get a drink of water, step away, feel free. Just be present in the space. Take care of yourself so you can be present. And to own your impact as much as your intent. So making sure that we are intentional about what we're saying. And if we do say something that is harmful, that we own that. So these are the agreements. I appreciate folks agreeing to them. If there are any rejections, say something in the chat box or raise your hand. But otherwise, I'm seeing thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you're in agreement with these. Cool, 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 sweet. Thank you. Nice. So let's keep it moving. My bad. So now we're going to dive into our Minty, actually. We want to hear from you all. Leah, are we going to share the screen for this as folks' questions come in?
Yep. This one,
Right,
I'll get it going.
Cool. And then we'll have the website up and the little code that you can put in too. But I just want to read the questions off for you. So the first question that you're going to be answering is, if you vote, why do you vote? And then the second question is, if you don't vote, why not? And then the third question is, what's at stake for you and your community in this election? And again, these are all anonymous, so we're not going to see your name if you put your answer in there. And if you look at the top, it says go to www.minty.com. Do that. And the code to use is 8400061. And so you exit your Zoom screen. You can press escape on your keyboard if you're on your laptop, or you can exit the Zoom screen if you're on your phone and go to this website, and it won't take you off of Zoom. Cool. We're getting answers in already. We got one that says it affects everyone and everything. It's very true. Because leaders do not naturally prioritize the needs of the oppressed, we have to demand our rights. Absolutely. Yes. Just waiting for these answers to come in. All right, we got another one. To be a part of collective voice to counter other forms of power, okay? To make the change I want to see, absolutely. Because so many people died and suffered for me to be able to vote, absolutely. To decide who we are going to hold accountable for the changes we want to see, definitely. Just some good answers. Keep them coming. And then we'll move on to the next one soon. Because every person should have their voice heard. I will fight for our rights. Come on. I vote for the future generations to stay alive, to achieve power peacefully. Yes, as a citizen, it is my right to participate in the process of, I can't see that last part. Can you scroll up, Leah? In the Minty, there we go. To participate in the process of governance, yes. It's what democracy depends on. All right. Sweet. Well, we can move on to the next one. Sweet. And again, this is anonymous, so if you don't, feel free to answer. Or even if you're struggling in this current election voting, we can rephrase this. Why? And again, we're nonpartisan, so we're not asking you to talk about a candidate. We're asking you to talk about the election. So if it comes up where you talk about a candidate, it's not who Wesco endorses, but we do endorse voting. So, cool. Yeah. I can say that too. It comes up sometimes if I don't do my research with judges, I won't vote in that area. But that's just me. So if I was answering this question, that's when it would come up. It's like I usually always vote, but there's some seats that I just don't be sure about. It's usually the judges. And I've done my homework and I know who to vote for. But when I first started voting, I had no idea who to vote for. Sweet, sweet, sweet. So a lot of I always vote. Same with the judges, yeah. I don't always have enough info about school board or park board, okay? You hear that, Chantel? I do vote, but with the polarization between folks nowadays, we research all the contests and candidates. Okay, definitely, definitely. It's hard to find any information at all about some of the local candidates, definitely, for sure. Cool. Sometimes I don't know enough about who's running for what. Sweet. Cool. We can move on to the next one. All right. So what's at stake for you and your community in this election? In 1 or 2 words. I'm pretty sure y'all gonna put more than 2 words. Whole paragraphs. But that's fine. Okay. Oh, it only lets you put that. That's what's up. Come on, Minty. Dignity, humanity, empathy, lives, absolutely. Democracy, freedom, the planet. Okay. Yep. People I love, environmental justice, more pain, equity, the planet again, environmental justice, um, democracy, immigrant rights, gay rights, women's right to choose, dignity, rights for LGBTQ folks. Yeah, consciousness. Yes. I'm gonna throw Black lives in there. Absolutely. For sure. These are great. Mental health. I love that some of these have spelling errors too, but I'm not gonna say them the way that some of them are spelled because it's not cool. This is great. Do not want a dictatorship. Okay. Empowerment. These are great. Big equity. Can't answer because really, I don't know what that. More pain.
I
Okay.
see tacos.
Yeah, tacos. I don't know who put tacos.
I
uh,
mean, it's a reason. It's a reason.
yeah. Whoever put that, we're calling you out. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, if tacos are at stake, that's serious business.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate y'all participating. Who wins? Okay. Humanity. Just keep going. Just don't want to stop. All right. This is great. Women's rights, health, planetary survival. Saw Black lives in there. Yep. Economics, dignity. We have lousy choices. Sweet. All right, cool. We can close out this activity. This is great. I appreciate you all participating. This is a new tool that Wesco was using. We knew how it was going to go because we practiced it, but we're excited that it went so well. Did folks like that? Did that feel interactive and good? Put your thumbs up. You can do the little thumbs up icon if you want to. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. It's cool that a lot of folks said they vote because they want to be a part of collective power. They care about maintaining our democracy. They vote because our future relies on it for different issues and whatnot. And then when we got into what's at stake, people talked about, basically their freedoms at stake, LGBTQ rights, environmental justice, the planet, mental health, Black lives, economics. There's going to be more pain, dignity, a lot of these different things that I associate with like our freedoms being taken away. Yeah, and so it's really important that we're showing up to the polls and we're pushing our friends, our families to show up to the polls. And I want to dive into this little presentation, which really is just some pictures and some words. And I'm also going to be talking about what's at stake. So come along on this ride with me. I'm going to share my screen. Sweet, sweet, sweet. So cool. We know this is called Our Voice, Our Power, Our Vote. And we've been talking about this throughout the whole call already, what's at stake during this election. And this year, even, we've seen some of the most intense movement in our social movements. We've seen uprisings, we've seen brutal murders on camera. We've already been seeing that, but the reaction to it has been different because we have a global pandemic going on right now that's made it even more clear who doesn't matter in this country. We know Black folks matter, but that's what we're saying, Black Lives Matter, because in every single system, we're shown that they don't matter. And COVID has made that even more clear, with Black folks being more susceptible to getting the virus and dying from the virus because of us being exposed, because we still got to go to work, us not having access to healthcare, just all these different things. And we're seeing this with the immigrant community. We're seeing this with the indigenous community. There's a lot at stake this election, and y'all know that because you put that in the chat box when we were on the Minty app. And we also know that voter suppression is a thing. It's been a thing throughout history. We can look back at the history of voting back in the 1960s when there were literacy tests for Black folks to even be able to cast the vote. And right now, we're seeing tactics that aren't the same, but they're similar. I've seen articles of white supremacy groups saying they're going to stand outside the polls and intimidate people, the same intimidation tactics that they were doing in the past. History repeats itself. And we also know that if you're in prison, you can't vote. That's voter suppression. We know that if you're on papers, when you get out of prison, you can't vote. We know that if you're an undocumented immigrant, you can't vote. So there's a lot of ways that voting is being suppressed, and a lot of the folks we love and in our community are not going to be able to show up to the polls. So just wanted to remind folks that us showing up to the polls is really important, because there's a lot of people who we probably walk past every day, work with, who don't have that opportunity. Now, what's at stake? A lot's at stake. My little sister just had a baby. Her name is Naomi. And there's something about looking into a baby's eyes and if you're a part of movement work and you understand how this world works, you're like, I have to make this world better for you. And I've really been feeling that in my spirit, in my soul, that no matter what, I have to make this world a better world for my niece. And so this picture really hit me, and I wanted to share it because I really do feel like the future of this country, the future of our children, really our freedoms in general is at stake. So with that, I'm excited to introduce our panelists who are going to dive a little more into this conversation and talk to you about what's at stake for them, what they're excited for after the elections and things like that. We got Chantel and Claudia. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I appreciate y'all going on that ride with me for that presentation. And I'm actually going to have them introduce themselves because I don't feel like I can do them as much justice as they would do themselves. So I'm actually going to have Chantel go, and then we'll dive, Chantel go, then Claudia, then we'll dive into the panel.
Cool. That's so funny that you were talking about those babies, because that's exactly, you hit that right on the head. Like every time I see a new baby, I'm like, I'm gonna get this right. You're not gonna have to march in the streets. So you hit that right on the head. My name is Chantel Allen. I was born and raised in the historic Rondo community. Grew up, my dad worked at the Urban League for like 20 years. So that's where I kind of got involved and understood what organizing was and how that happened. I'm an educator, worked in the school systems for a lot of years, but more than just an educator, I'm a youth advocate. I believe in the power of our youth and the future that they can bring us. That's kind of my whole work, right? So I currently sit on the St. Paul School Board. I was a paraprofessional in the district for a lot of years, and you know, working at the bottom and doing all that work, and I was an EBD specialist, and so I saw the injustices that were happening to brown and black kids in the special ed department, and it really fired me up to really try to make some changes happen. And when I couldn't get it done from this position I was in, I decided to run for office, and I won. So now I'm on the school board. So now I'm EBD specialist is emotional behavior disorder. I put that in quotes. It's a diagnosis that was handed out in the early 2000s rapidly to brown and black boys that had a lot of energy, that probably were seeing the world and what it was coming to in the future and wanted to express themselves, but they didn't fit into the classroom. And so they would get these diagnoses, you know. I do believe in urban trauma. My degree is African American Studies and Psychology, so I study the urban condition. I do understand that urban trauma is a thing, and it does affect our brown and black students in the classroom. I just don't think that it requires them being pulled out into smaller classrooms and being taught at a lower level, which is kind of what happens. The EBD program leads to the school to prison pipeline. And so I work really hard at interrupting that school to prison pipeline. And that's what I vow to do on the school board, is to shape the school district so we can interrupt that pipeline. So that's who I am.
Awesome. Thank you, Chantel.
Yeah.
All right. And now we have Claudia.
Hi, how's the volume?
It's great.
Okay,
Sounds good.
good. I've been told I speak a little loudly.
No,
Well, I just have to give a shout out to Director Chantel. The achievement gap and what she's seeing, the pipeline to prison, is a real thing. I have been in other countries where I sit down with teachers and they say, you know, in the United States, you're seeing a disproportionate amount of black and brown boys in our special ed classrooms. That doesn't seem right statistically. Why is it that you have such a cluster of brown and black boys? Well, somebody from England said, you know, that's what we see in England. I am a teacher in London, and it's all black and brown boys in my special ed class. So, you know, it's going to take quite a bit of effort, because there are people that benefit from those systems. That's why they exist. You know, when we have a pipeline to prison, it's because somebody is benefiting from that system. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. I had an opportunity to teach at the Stillwater State Prison, young Latino men, and they were my best students. Maybe because some young people take their education for granted, and the folks who are at Stillwater State Prison said, okay, this is the one day that we get to actually talk about Chicano studies. But I don't teach now. Right now I'm working at the Metropolitan Council. I do outreach and engagement. And I also am deployed part-time to work with the State Emergency Operations Center, setting up COVID testing sites all over the state. The COVID thing is real, and it has really shined a light in a very glaring way on the disparities that exist locally, nationally, globally. I'm delighted to be here with you today, because I can see all of you would be on this call because you're interested in improving the outcomes of low-income communities. And I'm all about being with people who are interested in doing something to improve the outcomes of low-income communities. I grew up on the West Side. My father worked in the slaughterhouse. My mother was a homemaker. I grew up by Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. I had never seen my parents vote. They never talked about voting. They never talked about being in the political process. And so I guess I'm part of that generation that decided that voting matters.
Awesome. Thank you, Claudia. So now let's dive into these questions. I'm very excited to hear about what's at stake for you all, what you're excited about in this upcoming election, just about your personal experiences in your work, honestly. So this first question is the heavy one. Well, yeah, it's the heavy one. What's at stake for you in this upcoming election? And I will let you two decide who wants to go first.
Go for it, Chantel.
Great.
All right. I was gonna say your mic is on. Go ahead. No. I mean, in reality, you know, we can talk about the big politics. We can talk about the presidential election and how, for me, it's really important to have somebody in that seat that is at least honest with us, that it at least has some integrity, is willing to tell the American people what's happening when things are going wrong. You know, if the hurricane is coming and it's coming out of 5, let me know it's coming out of 5. Don't tell me it's not coming, and then all of a sudden the levees break. You know what I mean? And so I just don't like those type of politics. And so things get rough in the world, right? We all go through things. We're all going to have tragedies. You know, every year California burns, right? So we know that things are going to happen no matter who the president is. But we need somebody who's going to be sitting in the seat that is honestly going to just tell us what's really happening. So on the big politics, that's really all I'm looking for. I really do believe in local politics, though. I always have. I believe in being able to know the people that are governing my spaces. I like being able to be in contact with individuals. And so I think right now in Minnesota, really flipping the Minnesota Senate. For a lot of years, the Senate has been, sorry guys, I'm in a car in the midst of stuff. For a lot of years, the Senate has been Republicans, been dominating, and it's been blocking a lot of bills as the world starts to progress towards making change for everybody. And when I say that, you know, I'm saying we all know the Constitution was written for a certain demographic of people. We all know that the state constitution was even written for a certain demographic of people. And we've gotten to this point now where we're looking around and we're realizing that our country really has been built by people of color, and people of color are here. They're not going anywhere. We carry a lot of economic weight, and it's time for us to start incorporating, or people to start incorporating us into their plans. And our Senate has been blocking that, right? It's been getting in the way of a lot of bills that can change our rules so that we can be involved. Everything from, I mean, we can name it. I mean, healthcare to, you know, education, budgeting, even smaller things like there's protest bills that have gone through that shouldn't have gone through, that have prohibited our rights in that category. I mean, so right now I think most important is flipping the Minnesota Senate, so that we can get people in there that really care about folks and not just politics, not just talking and I don't know what that is they do. Look, I'm saying that as a politician, but I don't feel like I'm a politician. I forget I'm a politician. I don't know what they do. I talk to the people on the ground. I talk to community members. I find out where people are at, and then I go and advocate for them. And those are the type of folks we need to get into office right now. And so I think that's what's most at stake for us right now, is our local politics.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Chantel. And Claudia, what's at stake for you in this upcoming election?
Well, Chantel touched on politics being local, and thinking of who's in the audience at the moment, West Siders, or people who work in some capacity for the West Side. When I grew up on the West Side, that was a while ago, there wasn't much of a voting culture, not in my experience. And so what I would like to see is how people turn out for this election. Because in 2016, people did not turn out in representatives numbers, not like the preceding election in 2012. So people were perhaps cynical. They felt their vote didn't matter. They didn't like the candidates. So they said, you know what, we're going to sit this one out. And look what happened. So, you know, when I sit down and talk with people who are cynical, or I sense that they might be cynical, say if I'm sitting down talking to a West Sider, I try to present it in a way that puts them in the situation where they completely understand your vote. You are voting for people. You are making a choice that are going to for people to work for you, West Sider. And these people, you pay their salaries. You pay their salaries. Your state reps, your local reps, you pay their salaries. And if it's the governor, you're paying for that mansion that he lives in. Not only that, these folks, you're trusting them to make the rules and the laws that we all have to live with. Okay, we all got to live with the rules and the laws that they make. Last, they take our tax dollars and they determine what they're going to be spent on. Is it going to be a nice, beautiful park next to an urban center? Or is it going to be for some tax break for somebody who's already rich? I mean, this is what you, West Side voter, have in front of you. You're going to pick somebody who's going to make rules and laws that you live with. They're going to pay their salary, and they're going to spend your tax money. You don't want to have a say in that? You don't want to have a say in who that person should be? I want to see if they actually decide to make that choice, because the choice is theirs.
I'd like to also add, I know we kind of briefed on this before folks got on the line, but the West Side is a high voter population area, right? When politicians think about trying to win the city or trying to win the area, they're very focused in on the West Side. And so kind of what's happened because of gerrymandering, right? It's kind of moved up to the Summit Hill, but that's working in the favor of the people. You know what I mean? And it gives the voice to the West Side. And so now I really want to see, you know, the voice of the West Side really show up in the voter polls, because when they do, politicians look and say, wait, that's a high voter area. What is it that they need over there? What is it that they want? What are their politics? And they start to listen to what those folks are talking about. And I would really love to see that voice continue to be amplified. I think it has been in the last, you know, couple elections where they've been really focusing in, but maintain that voice, maintain that strength in that voice by showing up at the polls, getting folks to show up at the polls on the West Side so the voice of the people can be heard, because I think it's really important. You guys are kind of the hidden secret in St. Paul over there. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Sweet. No, that is definitely true. The West Side of St. Paul is slept on. For sure. Let's dive into this next question. So what are you excited about doing, and how does the election fit into that? And let's start with Claudia this time.
Well, okay, I'm going to sound a little bit like a cheerleader, but you know Minnesota leads the country in voter participation. It's been like that for a long time. You guys, if you think there's voter apathy here, you should check out some other states. You know, over 74% of our eligible voter population will vote. And that's high, the highest in the nation. Second for the 2018 midterms was Colorado, and it was a distant second. It's easy to vote in Minnesota. I'm an election judge. You know, there's same-day voter registration, curbside voting, you name it. Not to mention the fact, I'm sure many of you people know this. Tell your friends, if you think they've forgotten or never learned, that Minnesota has a political contribution refund program. So any individual or a couple can donate money, $50 for an individual, $100 for a couple, to any political party in Minnesota that you want, or anybody running for state office. And you will get that money back. The form looks like this right here. I got to fill mine out today. So I'm telling all my family, like, we got a gathering coming up. I'm going to say, hey, political contribution refund. All of you give $50 because yes, we need to vote, but we need to dig into our pockets and we need to support the people that we want to support in real ways.
Yep.
And so, so that makes me feel optimistic as well, that we have a program that anybody, no matter how rich or poor you are, you can give a contribution to a local official or a local party and you can get that refunded back to you.
That's so true, Claudia. That does get left out, the piece around also supporting candidates financially that we want to see in local seats, in national seats. That's so true. That gets so left out. And so passing it over to Chantel, what are you excited about doing and how does this election fit into that?
I mean, I'm excited about doubling my vote. Every time my seeds go to the poll, I get excited. So doubling my vote. But no, seriously though, some of the work that I'm really trying to do on the school board is so deeply rooted in white supremacy and in racism, in the threads of America, unfortunately, that in order for me to really move forward in what needs to happen in our education system to start to educate all students, I need to be able to sit at the table with people who can begin to hear our stories, who can begin to relate to what the issues and the trauma that we've been dealing with, so that we can start the healing process. When we sit down at the table and we start to have those conversations and we're just faced with more harm, we can't get anywhere. And so I'm really excited about just starting to navigate that change. Hopefully our votes will push that change and we'll be able to sit at the table with folks who are ready to hear about what's going on, what's really happening, and ready to move forward in progress. That's what excites me, trying to get this work done, you know?
Yes, definitely. That's so true. Minnesota is definitely a place where it's easy to, we do have a lot of access to voting, and then us increasing the voter turnout, getting more people out is extremely important. I like both your responses because I'm excited for like a mix of both of like what you said actually. So this last question, where do you find hope for the future of your work? Or even just where do you find hope in the work, we can say?
So I don't know if you know about the Justice Alan Page and Kashkari amendment that is moving forward through education, where we're changing, they want to change the Constitution from saying that students deserve an adequate education system to stating that every child deserves a quality education system. I think it's a big step. I think we need to really start to, that piece, that amendment of the Constitution has been in play, I think they said since 1856. So we're talking about before slavery, you know what I mean? It's time to start to change our Constitution and some of the foundation of all of these systems, really, but I'm working on education. But the foundation of these systems to include all students, to include all people. And so that's what excites me really when I see things like that being proposed, knowing that it's going to take just some movement in the legislature and we can put it on the ballot next year and get folks out to vote and make decisions like that and to make some real change. So that's what's exciting me, our democracy.
Sweet. Thank you for that, Chantel. And how about you, Claudia? What do you find hope for in the future of your work, or what's exciting you in the work? What are you hopeful for?
Well, when that question first came up, I kind of had to think about it. Like, okay, what is giving me hope? And I reflected on my work as an election judge, and there have been ways, large and small, that have really given me hope. When I reflect on the past 15 years, for instance, like when I was working the polls in 2008, I had never seen so many young people at the polls, like registering each other, registering themselves. I mean, just so many young people came to the polls. That was the first year that Obama ran for election. So I know it can be done. I know people can turn out, they can get registered, and they can carry. And once they vote, chances are they're going to be voters, right? Once you get them early, they're going to start to be voters. They're going to have that consciousness. The second thing is that in 2012, there was this constitutional amendment forwarded to ban same-sex marriage. Minnesotans rejected it. And the following year, they passed legislation for same-sex marriage. Dramatic change in the daily lives of people. Another thing that happened a year or two later was medicinal marijuana became available for people. Minnesota, having been born and raised here, has always been very conservative about marijuana and things like that. And we have medicinal marijuana. And then lastly, I want to really talk about the incidents with George Floyd that affected us as a world, basically, in May. My lawyer friends told me that they were so surprised and pleased that on legitimate news outlets, the killing of George Floyd was referred to as the murder of George Floyd. Never before have we ever described anything, any police brutality in those terms. And this is on legitimate news cycles. It's acknowledged as a murder. Very recently, I was up at the George Floyd memorial site, and I was trying to register voters. And this young girl came up, and she told me that she had just graduated from high school and she wanted to register to vote, and I showed her how to do it on her phone. That made my week. Never underestimate the value of a vote. I tell this to this people all the time. In 2018, there was a very close race in the Bemidji area, and it came down to 11 votes. 11 votes unseated the incumbent to the challenger. So never underestimate the value, and never underestimate the time that you invest in trying to get people to participate in the civic process.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. I appreciate both of you being on this panel and just sharing some of your experiences, talking about your work, what's at stake, talking about your experience as an election judge, as an elected official. It was very insightful, and I appreciate you all sharing your knowledge with us. We have someone who's leaving. They were just saying thanks to you all and just letting us know that they're going to be encouraging people to vote in their place of business. And thanks again. But yeah, I really appreciate y'all being on this call. I will be in touch with both of you. If you want to stay for the rest of this call, we welcome you to do so. But I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
It always feels weird because people can't clap, but it's just me clapping for y'all.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
screen.
having me here though today, Mike. And thank you guys for doing this. I would stay, but Justice is calling. I'm about to hit these streets.
It's all good.
Justice for Georgia. All right, y'all have a good day.
All right,
You too, Chantel.
Peace.
All right, awesome. So we're going to keep it moving. We're actually going to dive into, we're just going to take a little break, actually. Just look at the agenda. Just if folks have to go to the bathroom or bring some water, whatever you need, we're going to come back at 7:05 and we'll jump back into the agenda.
This time, and that is to go question by question. So I'm going to raise the questions and then kind of open it up to everybody from all of the groups to give a little summary or maybe the most interesting point that came out around this. So the first question was, is there anything that surprised you about the framing around racism and voter suppression? Or maybe you had like personal stories or personal recollections about that. What were some of the interesting things that came up in your conversations about that? if anything.
Claudia had an interesting story about something. I don't know if she wants to relate that. She's out there. Is she out there?
Who's that?
Claudia?
I'm here.
Oh, yes, Claudia, could you share?
Right after I put candy in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I had a question for the group. If they had ever witnessed any attempt at voter suppression on the west side. I was not familiar with any of that, but I did know of a situation that happened 2 years ago. There was a mobile home community that had a large number of Spanish speakers, Latino folks, and one of the political parties put signs all by that mobile home community that had the incorrect information in Spanish about where to vote and when. And somebody saw those signs and she understood them and she understood they were wrong and she activated a couple of folks to go take them down. But that's the only situation that I'm aware of voter suppression here in the Suffolk County area.
Where was that, Claudia?
That was in Linda Garrett Johnson's territory out there by Shakopee. Yep.
I mentioned that I like to do something on election day, so I usually am a poll watcher, and I mentioned that the west side is pretty quiet, and so I'm usually shipped off to some other, part of the city to do that. In my shifts, I've never actually had to do anything. Yeah.
I was an election judge, and this was probably in the early 2000s. And because any party can send anyone to challenge voting, I did notice, honestly, there was, it was from someone from the Republican Party, and the only ones they challenged were people of color, and this was at St. Matt's.
Anyone else?
In our group, it really was a resounding, no one was surprised. That all of this is not surprising and it's just more visible. And another thing someone mentioned was that it's profitable to keep systems of racism and oppression alive and well.
Yeah, I can mention too that on the West Side 100 that we were going to try to just be outside one of the local churches, and we were.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, remember Martin? We couldn't.
Yep.
And there was high Latinos there. And we weren't, trying to tell which way to vote. It was just, we can help you register.
We went to the local cleric at that particular church, and
It's hard to hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, yeah.
Is this better? Okay. We went to the local cleric at that church.
Yeah.
And I think you did. You went.
Yep.
And they said no, we don't want. And like she said, it wasn't partisan. It wasn't anything. It was just not
Right.
And I related. It's someplace in Texas, and I'd have to get a little bit more detail. But I think that they're only allowing because they're having this one polling place per county or something like that. So if you're in a big county like Houston, like Harris County where Houston's at, there's one place to vote, and then, as opposed to like maybe another county that has less population. So, they can say, "Oh, we're all being equal," but no, it's basically suppression because that's a very diverse county. Yeah, nobody was really surprised with this. Kathleen, you're going to say something? I'm sorry. Kathleen, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say it's where people can drop off their absentee ballots. It's one per county, but I think in
Okay, thank you.
Austin or something, there is one county that has 4 million people in it, and they have one place that they can drop off their ballots.
And in
Not
yeah, and in Texas, you can only get a mail-in absentee ballot if you're disabled or over 65. So, you know.
So I was saying that the tools of suppression aren't overt, like it might be a little bit more this election with some proud guys at the polls and some bullshit like that. But it's the master's tools. It's the prison to the cradle to the prison pipeline. It's controlling the narrative. And then it's us in our community saying, you know, what are you, some kind of nerd? What are you voting for? That doesn't count. That doesn't matter. But the tools of the suppression are like, you're giving a more clear example. We tried to do voter registration at Our Lady de Guadalupe, but the white priest there was like, oh no, we can't, you can't do that. Why can't we try to build power in our own community? And even in some of the other institutions, there have been some tensions and barriers. Try getting into someone's apartment building to register them to vote. And look how the property owner or the management looks at you. Because what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to connect people to a basic tool of power within this democracy, right? And
Correct.
so,
Mm-hmm.
so that those are some clear examples, but it's not like we're gonna see that. It's just these tools. And so, you know, and what came up for me was that we can't, the master's tools will never be used to deconstruct the master's house, right? So the things that excite me about people getting really involved now is that now the work can begin for us to dream bigger and be more courageous and have more people involved in what solutions look like outside of the parameters of the white master's tools, right? So they're not going to look like, you know, they might look a little more fun in our face this year. I don't know what the experiences has been for people in the South. I've heard things before. I know how suppression has worked in some of our Spanish speaking communities. I've heard stories as well, but yeah, I just think it's the tools that suppress, and the suppression has been working and already working. That's why where lies such a great opportunity for us to claim and have that, just that fundamental lifting our voice can be just that vote, you know.
Thank you for all of that. I really appreciate the variety of things that are already coming out of the conversation, from, you know, supporting people by going to doing poll watching and making sure that people have what they need while they're in line, to how do we talk to our own community about not internalizing the tools of oppression by like ridiculing people, or how are we changing the conversation? So thank you so much for that. How about the second question? So there was a really, really rich conversation amongst the panelists about what's at stake. What came up in your conversations, the small conversations, for you and the people you talked with? What really is at stake in this particular election, and the role that this election plays in a larger historical or social context?
Can share something I brought up in my group, which is just that so my wife is on the birth certificate of our children because we're legally married in this country, but if that was overturned, then she would no longer be a legal guardian. And so we're going through the process now of just like her adopting our own kids just to be safe. But there's definitely like some safety and like legality things that are really, I don't know, feeling intense for us right now. So that's like a personal thing that's on my mind in terms of this election.
Yep. That's a huge one. Thanks, Ellie. What else came up for people?
Well, I mean, we've seen blatant racism coming out of the administration and the president, and that has just a lot of stuff was under the rocks. Now it's open to the point where there was a plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan by these right-wing nuts. I'm afraid there's going to be more of that. That's what's at stake, really. I mean, when we talk about that we could, democracy and I read about a lot of police forces and even in the military have been recruited by recruitment going on by right-wing militias. How big they are in there, I don't know. How many people are in there, I don't know. But that's what's scary. We don't, and even the FBI, there was a report that's come out that's saying that no, don't really, worry about Antifa. They're not going to be that. It's all these right-wing militias that are going to be, that there's domestic terrorism that's going on. So that's what's scary to me. That's what's at stake, that there's going to be more of the same if, that if the election goes a particular way. And I think that it's like somebody was mentioning, it's like the last gasp that's going on of white supremacy. I mean, my analogy is once you have an animal cornered, it fights so hard to survive, and just like we would fight so hard to survive when we're about to be killed, or that we perceive to be destruction. It's an existential thing, so it's very scary. And some of the rhetoric coming out, like you have really nice people, but sometimes it's like, that's what's at stake.
How about some others? I was thinking, so connecting with what Martina was saying, we're at a place where finally in education, finally at a place where people are talking. We need ethnic studies because we have, our kids need a different kind of education. They need to know about our histories. They need to know about different cultures. And at this moment, then you have, at the top level saying like, that's a danger to our country. You can't teach, critical race theory, ethnic studies, it's a danger. And after that, I mean, part of it is just like, yeah, whatever, people are going to teach. Once you get to a certain level, like who has the ability to continue to teach things, who's going to be limited to do that. But even at the college level, the week after that, there was a program that was going to show the movie Malcolm X, and they canceled it because they were worried they're going to lose all their federal funding. Like, so you can't do some basic things about history, raise certain kinds of questions, and watch a movie about it to have a conversation. And that, to me, that really does feel like it is kind of a threat. Like it is a danger to all those who don't want to know that history and want to build something else. And it's like we need to protect our ability to do that. How about some others?
Well, I think, what that is doing is silencing voices. And I think the other thing they're doing to silence voices is the militarization ever stronger of our police forces, of the National Guard coming in and attacking peaceful protesters with gases and rubber bullets and etc. Every day it is more militarized, more military vehicles, excessive use of force. And it now it is creating that, squashing the voices of the protesters, but making protesters out to look like these terroristic, radical groups that do nothing but looting and harming, and thus justifying, creating fear in many of the populace against those protesters, thinking we need to, make sure they don't do that. So the violence is justified. So I think that is something is of concern.
Thanks for that. And thinking about the panel discussion, that kind of thing is happening no matter who's in the White House, the increased militarization. And so like building local power and having, increasing local voice and having some sort of other way of talking about policing and what's going on in neighborhoods is really important. Thanks for that. How about some others? Anything else? Like what else came up? What's at stake? Michael?
And then we are approaching the end, so
Okay.
we're gonna have to like maybe wrap this up probably in the next like minute or so, just so that we can do the call to action and close.
Okay, cool. So I think the final thing was just thinking about, we won't have time for a big report out for this, but thinking about, given all the things that came up both in your small groups and in this larger report back, how does this shape the way we think about talking to neighbors and family members? Like, is it really about convincing them of one thing? Or how now do we have a bigger range of how we can frame the conversation, like what's at stake, how we're thinking about this, what it means to have a voice in the political processes that we can engage with. So thank you all for all of this. And again, thanks to my group, we had a really great conversation. And I think that what was really important to me about the conversation, so moving to the next part of what's going to happen, is there's so much of this that's anxiety producing. And I think some of the next conversation is, some things that can make us feel a lot better about what we can do. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Donna. And now I want to pass it to the amazing Monica Bravo to do our call to action and close this out for the night.
Whoa, amazing. Hey, Michael, thank you. So everyone, it's great to be in community tonight, just with, hearing everyone and participating with everyone on the call. Leah, can you pull up the screen for the sheet? Share that on the screen. Thank you. So I don't know if folks, can everybody see this fairly well? Oops, maybe that's too big.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, great. So Wesco has a group called the Westside 100, which folks may be familiar with, and it's really just about 100% voter participation on the West Side. And really, even in our small groups, I was just reflecting back a little bit that I, shared personally that I wasn't raised in a political family necessarily. And it's been, years of gaps in between when my parents voted. But others, share too how creating a ritual around voting with your children or voting with your families and with maybe just even your neighbors or with a friend. And so I wanted to share some of the things that we're looking forward to doing to influence and the impact here on the West Side. So something that we have is a form that you can fill out, and we're going to go ahead and send this in an email for everybody who's registered, but it's also, the link is in the chat. And part of this form reads that voting is a sacred ritual. It can be a sacred ritual, and one that communities of color have been systematically and violently denied in our country. So it's more important now than ever to remember who and why we're voting for. So we have a couple of things that we have that folks can get involved in. So one, you can get a West Side 100 lawn sign, and they're gorgeous. They're both in English and Spanish, each language on a different language on each side, and we're working on trying to get some very quickly in Somali. You can also select to attend the Westside Community Organization Voices Forum, which is next Tuesday, the 13th. We'll be starting at 6:15. There'll be a breakout session with the Westside 100 group where they're going to go over a little bit more in detail some of the plans for banner drops and high visibility in high visibility traffic areas and other ideas. So then another thing that we can do is I'd like to attend the West Side Get Out the Vote Hype Party. So we'll be coming together virtually to use ritual and storytelling and fun to center on why our votes and our voices matter. We'll answer questions about voting and move people into action. And that's kind of a partnership project, a little bit with Political Healers, Westside 100, and Take Action Minnesota, the the C3 arm of TA. because they're both a C3 and a C4. And then we have some ideas. If you have ideas on getting involved, if you'd like somebody to follow up with you, if you have a lot of passion and energy around this, encourage you to go ahead and fill this out, let us know. And yeah, we have just a few short weeks until November. So anything that you see us sharing also in social media, please also share. And I look forward to seeing everybody again. Thanks.
Thank you, Monica. So we just had that form posted in the chat box by Leah. So please fill that out. And just as we close,
Can I add one more thing, Michael?
For sure, go for it.
Okay, so I work at Voices for Racial Justice, and we're doing a lot around this voter engagement and doing a lot around disinformation. We'll be working on that as well. And so we're putting together some videos and events to help get out the vote, and it's you know, broad. And so we created on Tuesday different ways that you can vote. So it's about a 25-minute video. It's, you know, what to expect. How do you order your ballot? How do you vote by mail? How do you go to the polls and vote in person? What to expect on election day. And so I would love to share that with you. There's also, I'd like to share the script so that you could actually make the video with West Siders. So I want to share that with you.
Awesome. So I would say all of those resources, let's pull those into Westside 100 next Tuesday.
Sweet. And if there's anything you wanted to post in the chat box, I don't know if you had a link or anything, Monica, Brian, but feel free to do that. So with that, I'd love to hear how folks are feeling leaving the meeting. If you could post a feeling word in the chat box. An example, I'm feeling optimistic leaving this meeting. Okay, and just wait for those to come in. God, I'm feeling energized, in community, united, calmer, action, inspired, connected. Great. Awesome. Yeah, so folks, sweet, I think we got all of them. Agitated, absolutely. So calmer, action, connected, agitated, united. Sweet. Well, thank you for sharing your words with us, inspired. We got some really cool words. What we're doing around voting on the West Side is extremely important. We're in a really crucial moment, and I feel like everyone feels the energy right now. Kind of feels like an all or nothing energy. And I want to close with this quote, actually, because all of our liberation is bound. So we all don't get free. If one person's not free, we all don't get free. And so I want to close with this quote because I feel like right now it's more important than ever. Here it is. Give me 1 second. And this really speaks to, I think, where we're at, because there are a lot of groups being called out, and I think it's important that we show for everyone in this moment. So first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. And I think that speaks volumes to the moment we're in right now, especially with different groups being called out and labeled as terrorist groups and things like that. I think it's important that we realize how bound our liberation is, and we all get free when we all get free. So I appreciate you all being on this call. Please look out for emails from us about the next Voices meeting that's going to be happening October 13th. We'll be sending that out in an email with a link and stuff like that. And please fill out the form that Leah posted in the chat box for Westside 100, because we love for y'all to stay involved and keep this work moving. We're pushing for 100% voter turnout. So enjoy your evenings and the rest of your week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Bye.
hello,
Thank
hello.
you.
Talk to you
Bye.
later.
Hello, hello, hello. Can anybody hear me? Bye. Can you hear
I
me?
can't, Dean.
Yeah,
I can't.
it was.
I'm dropping off. Thanks, you
Okay.
guys.
Bye,
Gotta find the
Jennifer.
right head.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see
Bye.
you.
Bye, all.
It's better now, your sound, Martine.
Oh,
Are
is
those
it?
different
Okay, I
headphones?
got, all right, different headphones.
Yeah. Hi,
Good
Monica.
job. Good job, Monica and Monica and
Hey.
Leah. Okay.
All right, we'll see you guys later. Good night.
Yes. Bye.